From the South Carolina School Boards Association, I'm Scott Price, SCSBA Executive Director, and welcome to the Voice of School Boards. It's in the complex world of public education that school board members find themselves squarely at the forefront. From the loftiness of policy development and having a vision for schools to the rudiments of budget developing and building classrooms, school board members are tasked with addressing the challenges and inequities in education. Oftentimes, in the process of doing so, school board members' voices and that of other local leaders become a whisper. The goal of this podcast is to educate, amplify, and engage in a civil discourse on where we've been in education, where we are now, and where we hope to go in the future. Along the way, we'll meet some very interesting people and also have a little fun. Welcome to the Voice of School Boards, and joining us on this edition of the Voice of School Boards, Dr. Kathy McFarland. Kathy is the Executive Director of the Consortium of State School Boards Associations. Welcome, Kathy.
Well, thank you, and thank you for this opportunity to share some time together.
Well, we're delighted to have you. And so you're relatively new to the association, but it's also a pretty darn new association in and of itself, and was founded in 2022, just a few years before you stepped in as executive director. And you're about to wind up your first year in July.
Yep.
Well, what do you see heading into winding up your first year as the greatest opportunity for COSSBA in this next chapter?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So it is exciting. I started in July, so we are coming up on my first year with my COSSBA team. And, as we move into our next chapter, it's really about deepening our value for our members, really taking a look at strengthening our federal advocacy work, expanding high quality policy resources, and really just providing opportunities for our states to come together and collaborate. And so just excited to build on already the tradition that COSSBA was founded on and just really stepping up that value for our members.
So COSSBA continues to grow. We started strong 2022, and that it seems like so very long ago, but it really wasn't. And I think that speaks to how far the organization's come. It really seems like we're an organization, in my opinion, the view from the membership is that COSSBA appears to have been in place for decades. And I think, again, that speaks to how well the organization has run and how true it stayed to its purpose of moving forward. So tell us how your first year has been.
It's been really great, Scott. It's been exciting work to do. I have tremendous respect for the founding vision of COSSBA. It was built on collaboration, transparency, service to our state association. And my role isn't to redefine that foundation, it's just to build on that. And so getting to know our member states, getting to know what their needs are, working with my team, building my team, and just making sure that we're really listening and understanding the needs of our state associations. And like I said, once again, building on that real solid foundation that was there when I took this position.
Well, how has COSSBA, as the new kid on the block, so to speak, and of course, I've been involved with the advocacy efforts from before the charter was signed. And how is COSSBA being perceived by, this is kind of a multiple question, by DC? Because federal advocacy, as you mentioned, is a very strong part, and we've been doing that from the start.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're involved in legal advocacy. How is COSSBA being perceived by DC, and how is COSSBA being perceived by some of our sister organizations or brother organizations, AAA, and the teacher groups that are out there? Tell us what the perception is.
Yeah. So we've made a concerted effort to really have a presence in DC, right? You have to get in front of these decision makers. And so Julie Fiesel, who's in charge of our government relations here at COSSBA, and I have really tried to make sure that we are in DC at least every month or every 2 months. Like I said, it takes time to build relationships. And so getting to know these decision makers, getting to know the people who are at the table, having these conversations about public education, and making sure that we are COSSBA's at that table. And as far as our sister and brother associations out there, they've been very receptive of partnering and sharing information. I mean, we're all rowing in the same direction, right? We may be taking different paths to get to that, but we're all rowing in the same direction in regards to doing what's best for all students. And some of us come through the teacher lens, some come from administration, superintendent lens. We come from the board, of course, member lens. And so it's just been really nice to be able to collaborate and have conversations around things that are directly influencing the decisions that are being made in public education. So our associations have been great. We've had some really great conversations and places where we find areas that we agree on. And like I said, we're all rowing to make sure that kids are being taken care of in our public schools. So it's been exciting. And like I said, they've been very welcoming to us being able to be at that table and have those discussions.
Well, and COSSBA's also joined there's several, I guess, coalitions that
Mhm.
are out there, and I guess sometimes it's a safety in numbers, so to speak,
Sure.
especially when you're talking about Congress or
Right.
advocacy, and that is something that also continues to grow. I believe in terms of looking at the coalitions that are out there and how we can be a part of that. Is the process in place for ensuring that coalitions are of the relatively same mission? How does that work basically?
Yeah, so we have, and you know this, Scott, and you could probably speak to this more than I can. We have an advisory committee, GAC. Once again, I go back to kind of what we talked about at the beginning, always listening to our members. So we have an advisory committee who really specifically takes a look at everything from amicus briefs that are going out to policies, to conversations, to letters. You know, should we be involved and put our name on a certain letter that's going towards legislation? And so, you know, just working together and making sure that we are getting involved in things that benefit our members. And there are times that we say, you know what, this isn't our game. We're going to step back. But the nice thing is to always make sure that we are aware of everything that's going on. We might not necessarily be in that conversation or putting our name on a letter, but we do need to make sure that we understand all of the all of the things that are going on at the federal level, which is a tremendous amount of information that's coming out. And our job is to not only provide information to our members, Scott, but to also say, here's what it means to you. This is what it means to be, you know, in a board member position. This is how your legislation can affect your district. You know, when we start talking about taking away funding, people need to know, what does that mean? What does that mean for our district? And so I don't know if I answered your question, but we are always listening, talking, and making sure that we are using our advisory committee. We respect the fact that our members are experts. Scott, you are hands down one of our main experts in this arena. And so we're not gonna make a move until we look at our in-house experts to say, is this something we need to get involved? Is this going to benefit our membership? And then our job is to move the work forward.
Well, and I think that what I was kind of getting at, and this is the same, and you answered me, so thank you. There's multi-layered looks
Mm.
before we step into the traffic, and
Absolutely.
I think that's so important. It's not cumbersome either. It's not a process that gets bogged down because, as you know, as an organization that's at the table or wants to be at the table, in all instances, you've got to be able to react quickly sometimes, and I feel like that what's in place allows us to do that, but also gives us the sort of the multi-layer look before we dive in. So I think that's very helpful.
Well, we also have to understand our membership is very diverse, right? Our states are different. And so
Yeah.
we want to make sure that we're listening to all of our states and that when we make a decision, it's kind of best for the majority of our members. Just like when I was a state exec, you know, your districts are very different. You have some small, large, urban, suburban. And so you have to really make sure you're listening to all of the voices and making decisions based on the whole of the membership and not just specific. Just because you're the largest state or the largest district when you're at the state level doesn't mean that that's necessarily the best route for the overall membership. So it's really making sure that we're listening to everybody's feedback and input.
Well, and I'm smiling while you mentioned that because only when I got involved with the GAC and the federal advocacy with COSSBA did I come to understand. You know, Tom Bertrand was the first, and only when I got involved with it, I come to understand clearly how diverse the
Yeah.
states are. And, I think that's one of the top things that somebody in your position needs to be able to do is to be able to navigate that because
Oh, yes.
in this environment, there's minefields left and right.
And I
And
always say to my team, do not make more work for our state execs, right? State execs have so much going on
bless you.
state at the state level. The last thing they need is their national association to make more work or more confusion. And so our members, our execs have been really great about, hey, that might not be completely aligned with us, but thank you for letting us know what your move is going to be. That way I can talk to my membership at the state association and explain the why behind it. And so it's really important to me and our team not to make more work for you, to not to make your work more difficult, to always say, hey, 100% transparency. Here's what we're thinking. What is your thoughts and what are your feelings about moving forward with this? Is it going to impact you negatively if we put our name on something or sign COSSBA's name on something? Because people associate, if your name's on that, that means all your members must agree. And so we have to be very careful about what we choose to support. And that takes a lot of listening and making sure that we understand our members.
And some of that intentionality has been you all in the past, under your leadership, have been more looking for, in terms of ramping up the federal advocacy piece, you're looking for more local involvement.
Yes.
And can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So the number one thing, Scott, when we meet with, and most of the time we're meeting with staffers. I mean, let's be
Yeah,
real here, but that's who you want to talk to because
they
that's
make the decision
they
most.
do make the decisions, right? They're taking the information to the person that they're supporting. And so the one thing that we hear over and over again is give us stories, give us stories.
Right.
See, there's theory and there's practice, right? And I believe one of my superpowers is making people understand what it looks like in practice. You're making these decisions in DC. So our job is to say, here's what it looks like in practice. Here's what's happening in local school districts. Here's what happened in the classroom and in the buildings so that you understand that when you create a law or put a bill into place, that here's the ramifications when it hits in reality. And so the one thing they tell us all the time when we're in DC is give us examples. Give us examples of great things that are going in public education. Because unfortunately, right now, it's kind of noisy, right? And there's some negative noise out there about public education. And we just have to continue to bring all the great work that's going on in our public schools, which we know there's a tremendous amount of great things going on in our schools and in our classrooms. And so our call to our membership at COSSBA has been, please provide these great stories. We'll house them. We'll put it on our website. When we go to DC and I sit in front of staffers and legislators, I can share these great stories because often there is a disconnect between the conversation and actually what's happening.
Right. Now we also have COSBA also has a federal advocacy conference, so that's
Yes.
going to be in September again this year.
Yes. Yep. That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Sometimes folks say, "Oh, it doesn't make a difference," but I think in my opinion, it does. I mean, so what are your goals when you have a federal advocacy conference?
Yeah. So you're right. I think when people say it doesn't make a difference, one and done does not. One conversation does not make a difference, but the continuous communication and showing up, that does make a difference. And so the goal of our advocacy conference is number one, to bring people, our members together to provide information. We always invite representatives to come and speak, and then to do some professional development. Also to give our states an opportunity to come together and maybe sit in a room and talk about specific South Carolina legislation and what you want to do when we go to the Hill and we get in front of our representatives and speak to them. So it's an opportunity to come together and focus just on that. And then to have the resources while you're there to ask questions, to make sure that you understand what you're speaking to share out. Because often what we see happen in one state starts to happen in other states. So sometimes it's nice to say, hey, we've been down this road. This is what we've learned. Here's what you don't do, right? Sometimes that's just as helpful as what to do.
Yeah.
And so it's just an opportunity to come together and to provide information and resources and then get our members in front of their legislators and their representatives and speak to how important what's going on in their state and in their public schools.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, I kind of dove right in, talk about advocacy.
That's okay.
It's kind of what I eat, sleep, and breathe. But
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your background and why you're executive director, and you've been with Ohio
Yep.
for a while, and you're executive director,
Yep.
and then jumped right up to the national level.
Yeah,
What the
right.
heck?
Well, okay, so here's my journey. I spent 26 years in public education as a classroom teacher, a coach, a building principal, and then worked at the district level. And then the Ohio School Board Association reached out and said, "Hey, we have an opportunity. We're looking for a deputy." Under the CEO at the time was Rick Lewis. And so I thought, okay, because I truly believe, Scott, that when adults get better, students benefit. So to me, this was an opportunity to bring my passion and my work and my experiences to a higher level. Spent over 9 years in Ohio as the deputy and then eventually the CEO. And then this position came available. And once again, my belief in if I can work with adults and make sure that they are knowledgeable and have the skill set to support success of students, then I'm going to do that. And so this national position was an opportunity to have a bigger stage. Sometimes, I don't know, whatever reason, people like fancy titles. And so if that's what's going to get me in the door and I can sit in front of people and really talk about public education, then I'm all in. So I'm about 32 years now being in public education. I'm very, very passionate about it. I'm passionate about it because I truly believe it takes one positive adult to change the trajectory of a child's life in a positive direction. And if I can be a part of that, if I can help that adult make good decisions, good policies, then that's what I do then. That's what I love to do.
Well, so getting back to COSSBA, again, is only just a few 3 years old, 4 years old. Seems like it's an old soul, so to speak. Like it's been around for a while, it seems like. COSSBA continues to grow. I mean, we're currently at 27
Yep.
states, and we
Yep.
just had some new members join us. Where do you see COSSBA 5 years from now or 10 years from now?
So I think I love that. Hopefully, we will continue what call building our roster, right? Having more states join us because we provide value. Scott, it's so competitive right now. People, they're really looking at their budgets. They're really looking at what's our return on investment. And so I see us only growing in value. And the more people we have that join us, it's not about being able to say, oh, we've got so many states. It's all about the value of collaborating together. And so my job is to make sure that we are always, always saying to our members, do you believe you're getting a return on your investment? Are we a valuable partner in the work that you are doing? I equate it to, when you watch a football game and the players are out playing their hearts out and all the coaches are standing on the side, that's us. We are the support team so that you at the state level can do the work that you're doing. And so in 5 years, hopefully more people will join us because we provide value and the word is gotten out, right? It's just like a good restaurant. Everybody loves to talk about, oh gosh, this is a great restaurant. What I think is happening right now is execs are starting to share with their colleagues, hey, Cause is really providing us with great advocacy, information, resources and services, events, right? The events that we put on are high quality and meaningful. And so just to continue to build on that and making sure that we're always listening. I think sometimes associations and companies get in trouble when they stop listening to those who they serve, right? They start to say, well, this is what you need. We're never going to do that. We're always going to look to our members and say, how can we support the work that you're doing? And then we're going to make it happen.
Well, and how can I mean, because you kind of got ahead of me a little bit on my question there, because COSBA does support the state associations. Everything that you do goes through the state association to school board members. So, how, with that structure in mind, how can school board members be more attuned to COSBA and maybe be more involved in COSBA?
Yeah. So we make it very clear who we serve. We serve the executive director of the state association, we serve their board, and we serve their staff. We do not dip underneath that water level of the local school board member. And that's a little bit different than the other national association, right? We are very clear on who we serve. So we depend tremendously on those that we serve to push our information down to their local board members. And understanding that you have your events, The other thing I always say is do not take money out of the pockets of our executive directors and their state associations, because I remember when I sat in that seat, how important your budget is and deciding where you're going to push your funding and your resources to. And so we really focus on making sure we're serving the state exec director, their board, and their staff. And then we in return ask, hey, make sure that if you can, that you're letting your local school board members know that we have an upcoming event. And hopefully our execs are saying, absolutely, we're going to do this because it just makes my local board members stronger. And so that's what we do. We just, we depend on our members to help us promote our services in our events. And I think right now what's really benefiting is all of the advocacy information that we're pushing out. There's so much. And once again, people don't just want the information. They want to say, what does this mean? And what does this mean for my day job? And so that seems to be the thing that a lot of our state associations are pushing to their local boards, because state association execs are keeping their arms around what's going on in their states. That's
Trying to anyway.
right. That's a tremendous amount of things that are going on and just at the state level. Our job is to say, here's what's going on at the federal level, and here's what it means for you, and how can we support? We'll be more than happy to do a webinar. We can come and talk to your boards just to make sure that they understand what's going on at the federal level. So,
Well, and that was going to be my next thing too, is just to allow you to sort of plug COSSBA in terms of, we just had a COSSBA booth and somebody from COSSBA at our conference. We've had the folks from the lobbying firm to attend our conferences, and they do very well. And so those opportunities are available for COSSBA to be a physical presence and state
absolutely.
association level.
Absolutely. Now, and we'll do a strategic plan, but we would do a strategic plan at the state association level, right? Like if you decided, you and your board, it was time to renew your strategic plan, that's a service that we would provide. But we understand that one of the services that you provide is strategic plan for local boards. So we stay out of that. Now, if you called and said, hey, we need help with this, can you partner with us? Or Kathy, can you send your team to a local board here in South Carolina? We would absolutely do that. But we're not marketing that. We depend on you to give us direction when you want us to dip under what I call that water level.
So times are kind of crazy sometimes, and it seems like with the political environment, the cultural issues that pop up, and as you said, just the state's diversity in and of itself. How do you keep yourself grounded when things get challenging?
Yeah. So I think just the opportunity to work with those that are passionate about public education and passionate about student success. There's something powerful about bringing leaders together across states for a shared purpose. And what keeps me grounded is remembering why we do this work, which is the students, right? There would be no boards if there were no students. And so when the work gets challenging, I go back to that core mission of supporting those who serve children in their communities. I think that's the best servant leadership you can do. I've seen it work miracles. I've seen it change communities. I've seen it change children's lives. And so that's what keeps me grounded, is just how important the work is that our members and their members do for our students.
Well, and what gives you the most optimism about where we are today, just overall in general, nationally with public education system, and what gives you the most optimism about that?
Yeah. So I have met so many great people, great board members. The nice thing about this position, once again, when you have a fancy title, people invite you to events. And I've had the opportunity to go to different state conferences and to speak, and just quality people who really, truly care about public education, their communities, and their students. That to me is what gives me optimism. I mean, I love, like, I'm really looking forward to this national event to be around people who are passionate. We may not always agree on how to get from A to B, but we're all in the same room because we are all devoted and passionate and excited about public education and the great things that are going on in our local schools and in our classrooms and our communities. So that's what lights my fire is just the quality of people who are involved in this. Just good
Awesome,
people.
awesome. Well, is there anything, if we're getting towards the end here, is there anything that you wanted to discuss that I may not have mentioned, or something you want to give a quick plug to or shout out about?
So just, Yeah, I'll take this advantage. Pre-conference is on March 12th. There's still time to register for our national event. It goes March 13th to the 15th. We've got some great speakers, really great learning sessions, and opportunities, once again, just to be around people who are doing the same work, doing the great work. It's just nice to be around people and say, hey, we're experiencing this in our local district. Have you experienced this? I mean, sometimes it's not actually the learning sessions, it's the what's in between, right? Walking down the hallway and meeting somebody from a different state. And so just, if you can join us at our national conference, that would be great. And just that we're always listening. Once again, we are here to serve those who serve. And so if we can support anyone's work in any way, we are here to do that. And we're excited. I'm excited about our team. I think we've got a really solid team that's passionate about the work that we do. And I think we're all aligned with, once again, who we serve and making sure that we are having solid return on investments for our members.
Wonderful. Dr. Kathy McFarland, Executive Director for Consortium of State School Boards Association. Thank you for joining us on Voice of School Boards. We're bringing a large crowd, I believe, to
Fantastic.
Louisville in a few weeks, and so we're looking forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, me too. And I'm looking forward to meeting your members and spending time with you, of course, Scott. And thank you for this opportunity. It's all about branding, right? Making sure that people understand who you are and what you're doing. And so this has been a great opportunity. The more I can get out and brag about COSSBA and all the great work we're doing for all of our great members.
And that's it for this episode of the Voice for School Boards. Thank you for sharing your time with us, and we'll see you soon.